Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Tiger Calculus. Today we're going to be discussing solving trinomials. Now in our last video we talked about factoring trinomials. So although we have to factor in this, there's one more step in finding the solution to the trinomials. So if you haven't watched the video about factoring trinomials or you're unsure about your factorization skills, you'll want to go back and check that out because I'll be factoring up here, but I won't really be discussing in depth why we did what we did, because we're working with the assumption that you already know how to factor. We're just going the extra step in solving it. So let's look at this example. We got 5x squared minus 10x. First thing you ask yourself when you're factoring is, do I have a greatest common factor? And in this problem, I do. Both of these terms divide by 5. And both of them share an x. So my greatest common factor is 5x. And then if I divide both of these by 5x, here I'll just be left with x, and here I'll just be left with negative 2. So here are my two factors. I've got a factor of 5x and a factor of x minus 2. And this is as far as we went in our previous video in factoring review. However, to solve this, we've got one more thing to do. We're going to want to set these equal to 0. So I've got this one outside, 5x equals 0, and I've got this other factor, x minus 2 equals 0. Now solving these for x will give me my solutions or my zeros for my quadratic. So I divide by 5 to solve this one. And I find that x equals 0. Here, one step problem, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I get x equals positive 2. So 0 and 2 are my solutions. 5x and x minus 2 are my factors. Great way to check your answers is to go ahead and graph this equation in your calculator. And you should see x-intercepts at 0 and positive 2. But this is the only thing that's different than we did last time. We know how to factor now. Now we just set all of our factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So let's see how this works on some other problems. First thing we want to do is make sure our equation is equal to 0. Right now, this equals x minus 6. So I want to move this to this side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract x and add 6, and that's going to cancel that out, and I'll subtract x and add 6 to that side of the equation. So I'll end up with 3x squared negative 8x minus x is negative 9x plus 6. And now this equals 0. Now I can factor this. But the first question I always ask myself is, do I have a greatest common factor? And 3, 9, and 6 can all divide by 3. Now, if I factor out a 3, I'm left with x squared minus 3x plus 2. Now I'm going to factor this trinomial. So I ask, what are my factors of 2? And I've only got one option. It's 1 and 2. And since they have to add up to negative 3, it's negative 1 and negative 2. So x minus 1, x minus 2. So now I've factored this problem out. This is where we would have stopped last time. This time I've got to solve it by setting each of my factors equal to 0. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides here. And I get x equals 1. There's one of them. Here I'm going to add 2 to both sides. and I get x equals 2. And there are my solutions. Only one simple step after we factored. So let's see this example, what happens here. X squared minus 6x plus 9. Do I have a GCF? First question I ask. No. So I'm ready to factor right now. My factors of 9, I could go 1 times 9 or 3 times 3. These numbers also have to add up to -6. -3 times -3, positive 9. -3 plus -3 is -6. So I've got x minus 3 and x minus 3. Now if I were to solve these, again, all I need to do is take my factor and set it equal to 0. And I would add 3, add 3. So I know x equals 3. And there's a solution. I would need to go to my next factor and solve that too. But look, we can already tell. These are the same exact factor. X minus 3, x minus 3. So this is a double root, which means we've only got one x-intercept, and my parabola will touch the x-axis, and so we're going to count this twice. We're only going to get x equals 3 on both factors. So this is what a double root looks like. My answer is x equals 3. No need to do it twice when you've got the same exact factor. (3x squared plus 8x equals -4). First thing we want to do is make sure this equals 0. We've got 3x squared plus 8x plus 4 equals 0. Now we need to know if we have a greatest common factor. 3, 8, 4. Don't have a greatest common factor, so we're going to factor this out, but it's one of those special occasions when a does not equal 1. So we want our grid put up. We drop our a value into the top left. We drop our c value into the bottom right. And we're not going to do factors of 4. We discussed this last time in the last video. We're going to look for factors of 3 times 4. So I want to find factors of 12. If I list out my possibilities, those are all my possibilities. They need to add up to positive 8. Well, only one of these work. 2 and 6. So there's 2x and 6x. We discussed all of this last time. Now to find my two factors, I take the greatest common factor of each row and the greatest common factor of each column. So 2x and 3x squared, they share an x. 4 and 6, both of those divide by 2. Right here is one of my factors. X plus 2. GCF of 6x and 3x squared. Both of those divide by 3, and they share an x. 4 and 2x, both of those divide by 2. Here's my other factor right here, 3x plus 2. Now, that's where we stopped last time. One more simple step to solve. X plus 2 equals 0. We'll subtract 2 from both sides. X equals -2. There's one of my solutions. Set this one equal to 0. 3x plus 2 equals 0. This time I've got 2 steps to solve for my solution. 3x equals -2. And then I want to divide. and I see x equals negative 2/3. And we'll leave that as a fraction. Again, we could check my answer by graphing this equation into the calculator. We should see x-intercepts at -2 and -2/3. All right, again, review that video if you're having trouble factoring, 3-7. That'll show you how to factor all of this stuff. And then the one simple step, the only thing we're adding is once you've factored it out, take all your factors, put them equal to 0, and then you've got a couple easy steps, and you'll solve for x. There's your solutions. Thanks for joining us on Mr. Tiger Calculus, and we'll see you next time.